Welcome back, everybody. Today, we're going to be diving into the world of fasting.
Ooh, fun.
Yeah.
I like this one.
Yeah, and we're not just talking about, like skipping breakfast or anything. We're
No.
going deep into like different fasting durations and how those different lengths of time affect our bodies.
Absolutely.
And we've got some really interesting excerpts from two different articles. Actually, one's in English and one's in Arabic.
Okay, go on.
Yeah, to kind of guide our conversation.
Excellent.
So,
That'll be a good one.
yeah, I think it will be. And one of the sources even mentioned mastoiditis.
Oh, wow.
But we'll get to that later.
Okay.
For now, let's focus on the fasting stuff.
Okay.
So just to be clear right off the bat, we are talking about intermittent fasting.
Yes.
Which is like cycling between eating and not eating.
Right.
On a schedule, as opposed to just like
Starvation.
starvation.
Yeah, exactly.
periods.
Intermittent fasting is very deliberate and planned out
Right.
as opposed to starvation.
Right. Okay, so let's break this down. What happens when we fast like for a full 24 hours?
Okay, so after about 24 hours, your body pretty much uses up all of its stored sugar, which is called glycogen.
Okay.
And it starts using ketones as fuel.
Oh, ketones. Now,
Yeah.
this is where it gets interesting for me.
Oh.
I know that ketones are an alternative fuel source, but how does that change, like, how we feel
Right.
and how we function? Like, what's so beneficial about that shift?
Okay, so think about it this way. Ketones burn much cleaner, and they provide more sustained energy than glucose.
Okay.
So that's why people experience less hunger
Oh,
and better mental focus
okay.
when they're running on keto.
So it's not just about willpower.
No, no, no.
There's an actual physiological shift
Exactly.
that makes it easier to stick to the fast.
Right. Interesting. And the source even mentioned a boost in antioxidants,
Yes.
which, I mean, who doesn't want that?
Absolutely.
But what about if we push it past 24 hours?
Okay.
What if we fast for 48 hours?
Now we're going into some exciting territory.
Research suggests that fasting for 48 hours can stimulate stem cell production.
Hold on, stem cells. Like
Yeah.
the things we hear about with like regenerative medicine or stuff.
Exactly.
That's kind of mind-blowing.
It is pretty amazing.
Can you break that down for me? Like, what are stem cells and why is that a good thing?
Okay, so stem cells are basically like the body's raw materials. They can develop into any type of cell.
Wow.
So that means that they can repair and regenerate tissues throughout your body.
Oh.
It's almost like hitting the reset button on your cellular aging process.
Wow. So it's not just about feeling good in the moment.
Right.
It's like potentially protecting your body long term.
Exactly.
And the source material even linked 48-hour fasting to a decreased risk of cancer.
Yeah.
Which is huge.
It's a big deal.
I'm guessing more research is needed on that, though.
Oh, for sure.
Okay.
Yeah, the research is ongoing, but the early findings are really promising.
Okay.
Yeah, it's like giving your body a chance to just do like a deep clean
Yeah.
and optimize all its systems.
That makes a lot of sense. So, okay, so then what about if we go even further, like a full 72 hours?
Wow.
The source mentions some pretty intense benefits with that, like a major boost to the immune system.
Right. But it's important to note that 72-hour fasts should only be done periodically,
Yeah,
not like an everyday thing.
definitely not an everyday thing.
Yeah.
But why do those more intense benefits kick in with longer fasts?
Or imagine your body has two cleaning modes,
Okay,
a quick tidy up and then like a deep spring cleaning.
okay,
So the shorter fasts are like tidying up,
okay.
but the longer fasts trigger this process called autophagy.
Okay, autophagy. Another term I've heard, but I don't really fully grasp.
Okay, so it's like your body's built-in recycling system.
Oh, okay.
During autophagy, your cells actually start breaking down and recycling damaged components,
Interesting.
which removes cellular debris, but it also really helps boost your immune function.
So it's like hitting the refresh button on your whole system, cleaning out the cobwebs and just getting everything running smoothly again.
Absolutely.
I can see why that would require a longer fast
Right.
to actually take effect.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so with all of these potential benefits in mind,
Yeah.
it's natural to wonder, like, okay, how do we safely incorporate fasting into our lives?
Right.
And one of our sources recommends the 186 intermittent fasting pattern,
Okay.
which is fasting for 18 hours
Right.
and having a 6-hour eating window
Okay.
as a starting point.
Yeah, that's a good one.
What makes that pattern a good option for beginners, though?
Well, for a lot of people,
Yeah.
it just kind of aligns with their natural sleep-wake cycle.
Okay, so they're sleeping for a good chunk of that fasting time.
Exactly.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, you to kind of skip breakfast,
Yeah.
have early dinner, and you're good to go.
Yeah. And speaking of making fasting manageable, the source really emphasizes the importance of mineral intake.
Yes.
Why is that such a big deal when you're fasting?
Well, when you're fasting, you're not just limiting food, you're also limiting your electrolyte intake.
Right.
And electrolytes are so important for things like muscle function, nerve signaling, and hydration.
Ah, so it's not just about staying hydrated with water.
Well-
You need those essential minerals too?
Exactly. Think of it this way. Water is like the highway,
Okay.
and electrolytes are the vehicles that transport nutrients and signals throughout your body.
Interesting. Okay, and speaking of hydration, our source also mentions exercising in the mornings.
Yeah, I saw that.
I was curious about that. It didn't seem like a strong recommendation, though.
No.
More of a passing mention.
Yeah, just something to consider.
Do you have any thoughts on working out while fasting?
It really depends on the person
Yeah.
and the intensity of the workout.
Right.
Some people find that light exercise can enhance the benefits of fasting,
Okay.
while others prefer to just avoid strenuous activity altogether.
Yeah.
So it's really important to listen to your body
Yeah.
and adjust accordingly.
So no hard and fast rules there.
Yeah.
No pun intended.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now, one thing that might make people hesitant about fasting is the source's mention of increased LDL cholesterol,
Right.
which is the bad cholesterol, right?
Yeah.
Should we be concerned about that?
Well, I think it's important to look at the whole picture.
Yeah.
While some studies have shown that there can be a temporary increase in LDL cholesterol,
Okay.
it's not necessarily cause for concern for everyone,
Okay.
especially if you're generally healthy.
Okay.
Yeah. More research is needed to really fully understand the long-term impact on cholesterol levels.
So it's something to be aware of,
Yeah,
but not necessarily a deal breaker.
exactly.
It seems like with fasting, as with most things in life,
Yeah,
moderation and listening to your body are key.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's always wise to consult with your doctor before making any future lifestyle changes,
Right.
especially if you have any pre-existing health conditions.
Good advice.
Yeah.
Now, before we wrap things up, I want to shift gears a bit
Okay.
and address something you mentioned earlier, mastoiditis.
Right.
One of our sources touched on this,
Yeah.
and I have to admit it seemed completely unrelated to fasting.
Yeah, it is a bit of a tangent.
Yeah.
But since it was part of the source material,
Okay.
we figured it was worth a brief mention.
Okay. So essentially, what is mastoiditis?
So mastoiditis is an infection
Okay.
of the mastoid bone, which is located right behind the ear.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So what causes this infection?
It's usually caused by an untreated ear infection
Oh, okay.
that spreads
To the mastoid bone.
to the mastoid bone. Exactly.
And what are the signs that someone might have it?
So common symptoms include fever, ear pain, swelling behind the ear,
Okay.
and sometimes even drainage from the ear.
That doesn't sound pleasant.
No.
Not at all.
How's it treated?
Usually it's treated with antibiotics to clear up the infection.
Okay.
But in some cases,
Yeah.
surgery might be needed to drain the infected area.
So definitely something you don't want to ignore.
No, definitely not.
But again, this was just a side note.
From our source material,
Yeah.
our main focus today is fasting.
Yes.
And speaking of fasting, before we completely sign off,
Okay.
I wanted to leave our listeners with a thought-provoking question
Okay.
that wasn't explicitly addressed in our sources.
Okay.
We've explored the physical benefits of fasting,
Right,
like
right.
all the cellular changes,
Yeah.
the potential impact on disease risk.
Right.
But what about the mental and emotional aspects?
Oh, that's a good question.
Could there be benefits beyond the physical?
That's a great question. And it's something that's being explored more and more these days.
Okay.
You know, there's a lot of anecdotal evidence
Yeah.
suggesting that fasting can have really profound effects on mental clarity, focus,
Okay.
and even spiritual well-being.
It makes you wonder if there's like a deeper connection between our physical bodies and our minds than we really fully understand.
Yeah, it's fascinating, isn't it?
Yeah. Maybe fasting helps us tap into a different level of awareness,
Maybe.
a heightened sense of self.
It's a fascinating possibility.
Yeah. And I think that's what makes this topic so intriguing.
I agree.
There's still so much we don't know,
Right.
but the potential benefits are vast
Absolutely.
and worth exploring.
For sure.
And that's what we love about these deep dives.
I know, me too.
You know, it's so fun to just,
Uncover these little
yeah,
nuggets of knowledge.
yeah, and get people thinking.
Yeah, and spark that curiosity
Exactly.
to learn even more.
Absolutely.
As always, we encourage you to do your own research,
Yes.
consult with healthcare professionals,
Please do.
and approach any new health practices with a healthy dose of skepticism
Yes.
and critical thinking.
Very important.
Great advice. Well, I think we've covered a lot of ground today.
Yeah, we did.
We've gone from the basics of intermittent fasting
Right.
to some pretty profound potential benefits,
Yeah.
both physical and mental.
Yeah. It's really interesting.
We even touched on a seemingly unrelated topic.
We did.
Mastoiditis.
Just for fun.
Just to highlight that sometime.
You know, knowledge can come from the most unexpected places.
You never know.
So true.
Oh.
Well, that wraps up another deep dive.
It does.
We hope you found it informative.
Yes.
Engaging.
Yeah.
And maybe even a little bit inspiring.
Absolutely. So it's not just about drinking enough water.
Right.
You got to get those minerals in.
Oh.
Like I said, water is the highway,
Yeah.
and electrolytes are the cars. They're moving everything around.
Okay, so speaking of hydration,
Yeah.
the source also mentions something about exercising in the mornings.
Yeah, I saw that too.
Yeah, and I was curious about that.
Yeah.
It didn't seem like a strong recommendation or anything.
Not really, no. It was
No.
more of just like a side note.
Yeah, like hey, maybe try this.
Right, exactly.
Do you have any thoughts on that?
You know, it really depends on the person and how intense the workout is.
Okay.
Some people find that light exercise can actually enhance the benefits of fasting,
Oh, interesting.
but others just prefer to avoid strenuous activity altogether.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, so it's all about just listening to your body
Right.
and knowing your limits.
Yeah, so no hard and fast rules there.
Nope.
Pun intended.
Exactly.
Okay. One thing that might make some people hesitant about fasting is the source's mention of increased LDL cholesterol,
Oh, yeah, I saw that.
which is the bad cholesterol, right? Should we be concerned about that?
Well, you know, it's important to look at the whole picture.
Yeah.
While some studies have shown a temporary increase,
Okay.
it's not necessarily a cause for concern for everybody,
Okay.
especially, if you're generally healthy.
Okay.
More research is definitely needed
Yeah.
to fully understand the long-term impact on cholesterol.
So it's something to be aware of,
Yeah,
but not necessarily a deal breaker,
exactly.
it seems like, with fasting.
Yeah.
As with most things in life.
Right.
Moderation and listening to your body are key.
Absolutely. And of course, it's always wise to consult with your doctor
Yeah.
before making any big changes to your lifestyle,
Mhm.
especially if you have any pre-existing health conditions.
Right. That's always good advice.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, so before we wrap things up, I
Oh,
want to
sorry.
shift gears for a sec
Okay.
and address something you mentioned earlier,
Oh, yeah.
mastoiditis.
Right.
One of the sources touched on this,
Right.
and I have to admit it seemed completely unrelated to fasting.
It kind of is.
Yeah.
But, it was in the source material.
Right.
So we figured we'd at least mention it.
Okay, so essentially, what is mastoiditis?
So mastoiditis is an infection of the mastoid bone,
Okay.
which is located right behind your ear.
Okay, and what causes this infection?
It's usually caused by an untreated ear infection
Okay.
that spreads to the mastoid bone.
Okay, and what are some signs that someone might have this?
So common symptoms are fever, ear pain, swelling behind the ear,
Okay.
and sometimes even drainage from the ear.
That sounds pretty unpleasant.
Yeah. That's not fun.
Not fun. How is it treated?
Usually with antibiotics, just to clear up the infection.
Okay.
But sometimes, in more severe cases, surgery might be needed to drain the infected area.
So definitely something you don't want to ignore.
No, definitely not go see your doctor.
Right. But again, this was just a little side note
Yeah, a little tangent.
from our source material.
All right.
The main focus today is fasting.
Exactly.
Okay, so speaking of fasting,
Yeah.
before we sign off completely,
Okay.
I wanted to leave our listeners with a thought-provoking question
Okay. I like it.
that wasn't explicitly addressed in our sources.
All right, sure.
So we've explored all the physical benefits,
Right.
the cellular changes, the impact on disease risk, all that stuff.
Yep.
But what about the mental and emotional aspects?
Ooh, that's interesting.
Could there be benefits beyond the physical?
That is a great question.
Yeah.
And actually, it's something that researchers are exploring more and more these days.
Okay.
There's a lot of anecdotal evidence that fasting can have profound effects on mental clarity, focus,
Okay.
and even spiritual well-being.
Interesting. It makes you wonder if there's a deeper connection between our physical bodies and our minds than we really fully understand.
It's a fascinating possibility.
Maybe fasting helps us tap into a different level of awareness,
Yeah.
a heightened sense of self or something.
Who knows?
Yeah, and I think that's what makes this topic so intriguing.
I agree.
There's still so much we don't know,
Right.
but the potential benefits are vast
Yeah.
and worth exploring.
Absolutely.
And that's what we love about these deep dives.
I know. It's so fun.
Right, we get to uncover these little nuggets of knowledge.
Get people thinking.
Yeah, and spark that curiosity
Exactly.
to learn even more.
Absolutely.
So as always, we encourage you to do your own research,
Yes, please do your research.
consult with healthcare professionals,
Of course.
and approach any new health practice
Yeah.
with a healthy dose of skepticism
Always.
and critical thinking.
Very important.
Well, I think we've covered a lot of ground today.
I think so too.
We went from the basics of intermittent fasting
Yeah.
to some pretty profound potential benefits,
Yeah.
both physical and mental.
Fascinating stuff.
We even touched on a seemingly unrelated topic,
We did.
mastoiditis,
For fun.
just to highlight that sometimes knowledge can come from the most unexpected places.
You never know.
That's so true.
It is.
Well, that wraps up another deep dive.
Another one done.
We hope you found it informative, engaging, and maybe even a little bit inspiring.
I hope so too. Yeah. It really is amazing to think about, isn't it? Like,
Yeah.
just changing when we eat
Yeah.
can have such a big impact on our bodies and minds.
It's wild.
It really speaks to how connected everything is, you know,
Yeah, for sure.
like all of our systems.
Right.
And I think that's a really important takeaway for our listeners today.
What's that?
You know, fasting, it's not just some trendy diet.
Right.
It's really a practice that taps into our body's natural ability to heal and renew itself.
It's like we're rediscovering this ancient wisdom.
Yeah.
And combining it with modern science.
Right.
To like unlock these new levels of well-being.
Exactly. And, you know, the best part is
Yeah.
fasting is something that's accessible to pretty much everyone.
Right. It's free.
Yeah. You don't need any fancy equipment or anything.
Right.
It's really just about making mindful choices about when and how we nourish ourselves.
And as we've been talking about, you know, it's not a one-size-fits-all approach.
Oh, definitely not.
There are so many different durations and patterns to try.
Right.
And what works for one person might not work for another.
Absolutely.
It's all about finding what feels right for you.
Exactly. And that's why it's so important to, you know, do your research. Talk to your doctor.
Yeah.
And really just listen to your body.
Your body knows best.
It does.
Well, we've covered a lot of ground today.
Well, yeah.
We went from the science behind fasting
Right.
to all the potential benefits.
Yeah.
And even some really thought-provoking questions.
It's a fascinating topic.
Yeah. And hopefully we sparked some curiosity in our listeners.
I hope so.
Encourage them to take ownership of their health journey.
Yeah. You know, knowledge is power.
Absolutely.
The more we learn about how our bodies work,
Yeah.
the better choices we can make for our health and well-being.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
So keep learning, everybody. Keep exploring.
Yeah.
And never be afraid to challenge conventional wisdom.
Right.
You know, the world of health and wellness is constantly changing.
Yeah.
There's always something new to discover.
And we'll be here to guide you along the way.
That's right.
So join us next time for another deep dive into a fascinating topic.
Can't wait.
Until then, stay curious and keep those minds hungry for knowledge. See you next time.